Good evening, friends and citizens, and welcome to the April 24th, 2018 board meeting of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone, as always, to please turn off your wireless communication devices or put them on silent so that they do not interfere with the microphones and taping of the meeting. And I will ask Dr. Wiseman to please lead us in the board prayer and pledge of allegiance. Please rise.
We pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, steer us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I want the chair to note that the flag is on the right side this time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wiseman, and thank you, staff, for putting the flag on its proper side. I will ask Ms. Tate to please call the roll.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Ms. Ahmed.
Here.
Ms. Boston.
Present.
Mr. Burrows.
Here.
Ms. Eubanks.
Here.
Ms. Hernandez.
Present.
Mr. Murray.
Here.
Ms. Page. Ms. Quinteros Grady.
Here.
Ms. Roche.
Present.
Mr. Valentine. Mr. Wallace. Ms. Williams.
Present.
Dr. Wiseman. Dr. Eubanks.
Present. Thank you, Ms. Tate. I will just make a note that our friend and colleague, K. Alexander Wallace, could not be here this evening. He did just text me to let me know he is watching live, and so he's participating with us virtually today. Colleagues, may I have a motion to adopt the April 24, 2018 board meeting agenda as amended?
So moved.
May I have a second? It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion?
Colleagues, I wanted, or Dr. Eubanks, I wanted some explanation on item 9.01, request for non-renewal of Turning Point Academy as an emergency item. Why is that on the agenda today as an emergency item?
It was requested by the administration because we asked them to expedite a solution for this as soon as possible. So they expedited as soon as possible, and that as soon as possible came yesterday, I believe, and they said that they had a solution that they wanted to propose. And so based on the urgency that this board gave the last time this agenda came before it, I thought it appropriate to add it as an emergency item.
Well, the administration came to that decision yesterday. It was not uploaded to board docs until today. I'm not in a position to thoroughly review all of the recommendations and the rationale in one reader when we just got it today. And so I would prefer if we took this in as a first reader, second reader, to allow the board members to thoroughly vet and read what the administration is proposing.
I would open, Mr. Burrows, if that is certainly up for debate, and we'll bring it up for you to discuss when we get to that item.
Well, according to board policy, whether or not it is an emergency has to be decided at the adoption of the agenda.
Right, so there's two questions. So you didn't ask whether it was emergency, you asked to move it to first and second. If you wanted to move it to first and second, you would do that at the time of the reader. If you want to remove it as an emergency item from the agenda, you need to make a motion to move it as an emergency item. But I would recommend to you that you don't do that and instead make your motion at the time that we address it to move it to first and second reader, because otherwise, this is adopting the agenda, and right now it's about whether it's on the agenda or not on the agenda.
Right. It's just that according to so if that's what you will allow, that's fine.
I will allow you to make that motion to the board when we get to that point, absolutely.
Okay, just that the policy reads differently, so we will be doing something that's different than what the policy states, as long as we're in agreement that that will be allowed. I don't want to get there and then, you know, Mr. Lucci says, you know, you should have done it earlier.
We okay with that as a process, Mr. Lucci?
Sure, at that point, we decide whether it would be first reading or whether it would be adopted as a final action.
Thank you. That's it? Ms. Ahmed?
Mr. Burrows expressed some of my concerns, as well as my question about the emergency item, so I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, I'll put the vote before you to adopt the April 24th, 2018 agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say no. Thank you. We've adopted the agenda. Colleagues, may I have a motion to approve the April 12th, 2018 board meeting minutes? It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say no. Thank you. That motion carries. Colleagues, we will now have a news break entitled The Catastrophic Lesson.
What are you going to do about this flooded school?
Oh, I said, we just gonna have to shut it down.
Okay.
And then we can move it to another school.
Flooded schools, impassable roads, stranded people. All dire consequences of a hurricane were part of a recent lesson on disaster preparedness for students in Suitland High School's Academy of Homeland Security and Military Science. Gathered in the county's state-of-the-art Office of Emergency Management, each student was assigned a role, be it mayor, public information officer, school superintendent, on a crack team dealing with simulated Hurricane Sully. And even though the students were just rookies, they had no time to lose. Lives were at stake.
So this is a real life scenario. So just think if, you know, this was really happening, you guys got to be able to make decisions and work together and communicate. So if you're going to decide to evacuate, be able to articulate why you're going to evacuate and where you're going to evacuate to.
It was a little bit tough getting them into their roles because they just came in there and they're like, oh, what are we doing? Oh, we have to answer questions. They didn't even look at their roles yet. So they need to read their roles, get set, have that foundation set, and then start playing them in disaster. Their roles, get set, have that foundation set, and then start playing them in disaster.
Looks like we need these students to come back here and fix this disaster relief. So what I'm going to do is ask my team to reboot the video. We're going to do our next agenda item, and when they give me the green light that the video is ready to go, then we're going to come back because we definitely want to continue to hear about the great work that our students are doing, and so we're going to make sure that everyone gets a chance to see that. So we will get back to that, and what I will do is move on to the report of the chair and the chief executive officer, and then see if our video is ready at that point. Colleagues, I'll start with the report of the chair. I begin my remarks, as I always do, by honoring the memory of family and colleagues who are no longer with us, and I ask you to join me in celebrating and remembering their lives. Ms. Denarae Allen, speech therapist at John Carroll Elementary School. Ms. Althea Foreman, secretary at Bradbury Heights Elementary School. Mr. Malcolm E. Hill, father of Ms. Ravenhill, Public Information Communications Executive Director. Friends, please join me in a moment of silence for them and our other family members who are no longer with us. Thank you. Just one quick note for my report, and I certainly do hope and expect that our colleague Kay Alexander Wallace is live online so that we can celebrate his accomplishment and his leadership. I want to congratulate Mr. Kay Alexander Wallace for being unanimously elected as the new chair of the Washington Area Boards of Education. The Washington Area Boards of Education is the regional group of boards of education throughout the Washington, D.C. area that meets and collaborates together to help share our common agendas about effective board governance. That election took place at the last Washington Area Boards of Education meeting on April 11th at Oxon Hill High School. Let's give Mr. Wallace a round of applause that he can hear on TV. Thank you. And just on upcoming meetings and announcements, May 10th, 2018 is a board meeting that begins at 1 p.m. June 7th, 2018 is a board meeting that begins at 5 p.m. And June 21st, 2018 is a board meeting that begins at 7 p.m. Meetings of the board are held here at the Sasser Building in the boardroom. Persons interested in speaking at the board must register with the Office of the Board of Education 2.5 hours prior to the meeting by calling 301-952-6115. I do want to also note there are a few folks standing in the back, and we have recently been admonished by our fire marshal that too many people standing in the back of the hall will create a fire hazard, and so we've created a secondary room. Our trusted colleagues in security will kind of make the assessment of when they think it gets too crowded and ask folks who are standing to go to that secondary room. So if you're back there now, our security folks will make that decision. No worries at this point, but I just want to make folks aware of that for now, particularly for future board meetings. Again, this is something that our fire marshal has asked us to respect, and that is what we will intend to do. And that concludes my chair's remarks, and I will yield the floor to Dr. Maxwell for the Chief Executive Officer's report. Dr. Maxwell, do we know?
Yeah, I was just checking on whether the video is ready or not. Do we know?
Nope.
No? Okay. Well, thank you and good evening. It's only Tuesday. It's already been an exciting week, though. Yesterday, Maya Angelou French immersion students, Marissa Tyler and Owen SCEC participated in welcoming French President Emmanuel Macron and First Lady Brigitte Macron as they deplaned at Joint Base Andrews. The students brought greetings and presented flowers to the French president and his wife on their first state visit. This ceremony was the start of the French President Emmanuel Macron 3-day state visit to Washington, D.C. And today, students from Central High School's French Immersion Program and Maya Angelou French Immersion students in grades 3 to 5 attended a welcoming ceremony on the White House South Lawn. I also want to congratulate the destination teams from Robert Goddard Montessori and Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School who have advanced to the global finals. These teams will join more than 8,000 students from around the world to showcase their challenge solutions and compete for international titles. We wish them all the best as they represent Maryland from May 23rd to the 26th in Knoxville, Tennessee. If you enjoy the arts, please join us. I think there are still a few seats available for the 2018 Arts Gala this Saturday, April 28th. The annual event showcases the artistic talents of our students and supports arts education in our schools. It is made possible through our partnership with the Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council and will be held at the College Park Marriott Hotel and Conference Center in Hyattsville. For details and to purchase tickets, visit our homepage. Congratulations as well to our 26 outstanding nominees who will compete for the prestigious title of Prince George's County Teacher of the Year. The winner will be announced during a gala event on May 14 and will go on to compete for the Maryland Teacher of the Year title. Nominees will be highlighted through social media starting today, so be sure to follow PGCPS on Twitter and Facebook and to get to know more about each exceptional teacher. Kudos as well to our Risk Management and Benefits Office staff, which partnered with Care First and Kaiser Permanente to provide 300 first aid backpacks to all elementary schools. The backpacks will be used during class field trips and were provided free of charge. This is a wonderful example of what can be accomplished through partnerships with our local businesses. And finally, our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. John Pfister, will be leaving to take over as the Chief Financial Officer for Queen Anne's County Public Schools, which will be a mere 12-minute commute from his home to his new office, as opposed to traveling here from the other side of the Bay Bridge. The position became available with the retirement of the incumbent in Queen Anne County, who retired March 31st after 30 years of service. John has been working with me and his new superintendent, Dr. Andrea Kane, on a transition plan as both districts finish out this fiscal year. Please help me congratulate John on his new assignment. Mr. Chair, this concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Is it soup yet on the video? No? Okay.
Maybe we'll try next meeting.
All right, we'll get to it. We have item 2.9, just a quick correction on the agenda. We are hearing just from one of our committee reports, the Parent and Community Engagement Committee. Again, as noted, our chair, Mr. Wallace, couldn't be here today, so I'll yield the floor to Vice Chair Patricia Eubanks for a report of the Parent and Community Engagement Committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just briefly, I just wanted to give some highlights of what the board has been able to accomplish and to let you know that as the year goes on and the new school year starts, we meet every fourth Monday, because we realize that as a school system, we can't do it alone. We need our community. We have topics that we talk about, but at the end of every meeting, we open it up so that you can tell us who you are and some concerns you may have, and we've made some very good partnerships over the year. So we appreciate you, and we want you to know that you are welcome. I'm going to explain what we do, what our committee charge is. The Parent and Community Engagement Committee is charged with the responsibility of fostering meaningful and productive relationships with parents and the community at large, and designing a strategic parent and community engagement plan that promotes great customer service and outreach to Prince George's County. The committee will also interface with local, state, and national legislators and keep those individuals apprised of appropriate programmatic initiatives, new services, and accomplishments of PGCPS. This committee also will be the primary liaison and partner to the Parent and Community Advisory Council. Our membership includes K. Alexander Wallace, the chair, in his absence, myself, the vice chair, Denora Hernandez, which is a member, Mary Roach, who's also here, Curtis Valentine, another board member, and someone who represents the CEO's office, that's Dr. Sheila Jackson. And just so you will know, all of the meetings have taken place, but we do have one final meeting before the school ends, which will be May 24th, which is on a Thursday instead of a Monday. Because of some scheduling, we had to move it, because I said it's normally always on a Monday, which is going to be at Columbia Park Elementary School, which happens to be in my district in District 4. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Ms. Eubanks. Before I go on to the next agenda item, I'll go back to a note we always remember and honor those who are lost. I just learned that our former Vice President of Prince George's County Education Association and speech pathologist here at Prince George's County Public Schools, Gladys M. Jenkins, passed away this week. And so our thoughts and our prayers are with Ms. Jenkins and her family. So we want to add her. Please do add her to your thoughts and prayers. I will go on now and yield the floor to Ms. Demetria Tobias for Associate General Counsel for the legislative report.
Good evening. It is a pleasure to address you at the conclusion of the legislative session. It was busy, as you know. Another record year in Annapolis, over 3,100 bills introduced over the course of the 90-day period, many of which impact public education. There's a description in the board report of a number of the statewide bills that are impacting us, and a lot of work that we're going to have in the upcoming months to update board policies, procedures, and work with school system staff to kind of get everything in alignment with the new legislation. But for the purposes of tonight's report, I just wanted to highlight a few things of interest for you regarding the budget, local legislation, and also a few of the key statewide bills. And of course, I'll be available to answer any questions that you may have afterwards. Budget-wise, Prince George's County Public Schools is going to be appropriated $1.14 billion next year. That's a $29 million increase approximately over this fiscal year. That's in the operating budget. Capital-wise, we're also set to receive at least an additional $18 million under a grant program for school systems that have significant growth and also use a large number of portable classrooms. So that will be an additional source of funding. Overall, in the capital budget, the state has appropriated about $313 million for the public school construction program. So obviously we'll be in line with the rest of the school systems, trying to get as much of a piece of that pie as possible. And there's also some new funding, and I'll address this briefly when I get to the school safety legislation, but there's at least $30 million on the operating or capital side to provide school systems with new grant funding regarding safety improvements, either to actual school buildings, or in completing assessments to determine the safety of our facilities. None of that is specifically appropriated to any particular school system. There is going to be a grant process either through MSDE or the Interagency School Committee, but it will be a very much needed source of added revenue for us next school year. On the local legislation, as you know, we spent several meetings talking about the local bills. Of all of those that were filed, the one bill that actually passed both houses and is law is Senator Rosa Pepp's bill creating a school construction master plan work group. This will be a diverse group of both state representatives and county officials that are going to take a look at the school system's educational facilities master plan, working with our Department of Capital Programming to provide recommendations on cost savings and some changes that may be made to the plan in order to help us to move forward faster with some of our plans. So that local bill did pass. In addition, there was another bill that Senator Rosa Pepp introduced that would have created an incentive program specifically for the school system regarding getting our public school projects, providing more state funding if we got projects under a certain amount. So it was essentially providing more help if we could figure out ways to make our projects more cost effective. That bill, as it was initially introduced, didn't pass, but what did pass is a bill that creates a pilot project for our county, Harford, and Washington County, essentially doing the same thing, giving us the incentive to get some additional state funding if we can get our costs below a certain amount. So that will be, that was kind of the compromise, if you will, between the local bill and a statewide version that he had pending. Highlighting for you a few of the statewide bills. We had discussed earlier in the session questions about education lockbox funding. A lot of questions from folks about where's the casino money going and how's it being spent. Today, when you look at it, essentially the casino money goes in the pot, but there's it kind of gets what it's doing is it's supplanting and it's not supplementing the education pot. So it comes in and then some additional funding goes out. What has been approved by the legislature is a proposed constitutional amendment, which will be before all voters in November. And that will essentially put a lock on that source of funding so that school systems will receive all of the money that goes in from commercial gaming revenues. What that would mean, starting next fiscal year, not 19 but 20, is an additional $125 million. Following year, it's an additional $250 million. Third year, it's an additional $375 million. And then the fourth year, school systems will receive all of the commercial gaming revenue. This year, it's over $500 million. So if that is approved by the voters, that's obviously going to provide a much needed infusion of cash statewide. Additionally, school safety legislation. There was a massive bill introduced about a week before the end of session to address school safety. Through many iterations and changes and last-minute adjustments, what we have as law is the Maryland Safe to Learn Act. It makes several changes to how several state agencies oversee policies and grants for school system kind of safety improvements for systems like ours. They also have staffing guidelines about appropriate law enforcement coverage for schools. So, for example, this year we're going to have to report to the state the amount of school resource officers that we have covering all of our high schools. The following year we'll have to report on how many school resource officers we have covering the remaining schools. And if we don't have SROs assigned, we'll have to provide evidence that we still have adequate law enforcement coverage for that area, just as an example. Significantly, the bill also expands the local school system's role in mental health services coordination, a huge, huge focus of the tragedies and the question about how is it that the folks who are in the building who may see the problem child or know something is off or just need some additional help in recommending some services to get to some of these children. How do we do a better job of coordinating that locally? So among other things, this bill is going to require each local school system to assign a mental health services coordinator. We'll have to do that by the fall. That coordinator will be working with local agencies, state agencies, making sure that students who are identified in need of additional services actually receive them, making sure that we're maximizing the use of external funding, for example, to expand the types of wraparound services that we provide, for example. So truly a comprehensive shift in terms of involving the local school system and helping to be part of the mental health services landscape, if you will. And then lastly, what the bill does is it, and there's a lot more in there, but I'm just kind of pulling out a few key points for you. There's about $30 million in there in school safety grants. Among other things, they want secure and lockable classroom doors. They want school systems to be able to do safety assessments, look at your buildings, find out where are your weakest spots. How do you upgrade your security technology? Not just having a button or a video at the door where you can see who's coming in, but how do you need to upgrade your security when they're in the building, and those types of upgrades. So the state has committed a significant amount of money at the outset for some of this. A lot more money will be needed, but it certainly is a very positive start.
I'm going to stop you just for a second.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, just to pause you. There are a number of folks standing up. I don't know. There may not be any seats left. I can't tell, but I would ask folks, if there are seats in the middle of your row, if everyone can kind of squeeze in to make those seats available so that some of our folks staying down. So if there are seats in the middle of the row, if everyone could just squeeze into the middle and allow for some seats for so some folks could sit, that would be great. Thank you, folks, very much. Mr. Bias, please continue.
Oh, sure. Okay, just highlighting a couple of other things for you, and then I'll stop. The school calendar legislation that we discussed at a meeting or so before was signed by the governor, and that bill is effective this school year and allows a local board to extend its calendar up to 5 days without additional approval from the state board. I do have to note that the state board had a meeting today, and my understanding is that the Attorney General's office is developing guidance to the board on how this law will actually work in practice, because there are questions from other boards of education about, well, does this mean we actually have to stop at June 15th, or can we just plan to stop our calendar on June 20th, et cetera? So we're expecting advice of counsel from the Attorney General's office on how the state board will interpret this law, and we'll absolutely keep you updated on the results of that. Wanted to also highlight for you a bill that's going to impact your review of employee discipline cases. This was Senate Bill 639, and what it does is if a certificate of employee is recommended for dismissal or suspension, termination or suspension, currently that appeals process comes through you ultimately and to the state board before the employee can take it to court. What this bill does instead is if the employee requests an arbitrator, an independent hearing officer, we're required to honor that request, and it removes the local board and the state board's review of the appeal in that matter. It is a significant change to the process that you will have in upcoming months in dealing with employee cases. And obviously we'll work with the board's office and on all of the kind of practical changes, but in terms of the substance of it and the oversight that you have now on the final say for some of these employee cases, that has changed as a result of this bill. Okay, wanted to just bring that to your attention. And then finally, I noted in the report, there's a lot of information in there, but there are also 2 bills passed regarding both the Curran Commission and the Not Facilities Commission. There are a lot in both of those bills, but a couple of takeaways for you. The Curran Commission is not done with its work. Its charge has been extended for another year, and we should have a final report by the end of the year. They have to cost out all of these recommendations that they have included, and there are literally dozens in their preliminary report. And we're expecting something in the tune of billions of dollars of additional state funding that they're going to recommend for the state to provide. So they have an enormous undertaking over the next few months. We'll be tracking very closely their deliberations and giving you information on kind of how it's progressing. But we're expecting dollar signs and to understand how this is going to impact the state fiscally by next year. And then finally, the Not Commission, the Facilities Commission bill, significant sweeping changes to how the state is going to be approaching approval of public school construction allocations. It removes the Board of Public Works from the final say-so on state funding for certain of these projects. The governor did veto the bill, but the legislature swiftly overrode that veto. So there's going to be a lot of changes as well in the landscape of public school construction over the next year or so. I'm going to stop there, and we'll be happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for that thorough report. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Ms. Ahmed.
Demetria, first of all, thank you so much for all your hard work. I know session can be a little bit crazy.
Yes.
And you've done as much as you could do and more.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. With the school safety, the Safe to Learn Act, they're talking about school resource officers covering schools and increased presence of them at our schools, correct?
Yes.
Did they talk at all about arrest data?
Yes, yes. So part of what they want are for school systems to report on the number of times that school resource officers either have to use deadly force isn't the right term, but it's everything from arrests, times that they've had to refer things to state criminal authorities, to use of force. And so there's all of this data that we have to collect and report back to the state. The deadline is escaping me, but this is all information we're going to have to collect very soon. Yes.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that, only because I feel like the last public Maryland document that I saw, which was alarming to me, was seeing so many of our students arrested in school, and especially more significantly than in neighboring counties as well. And so I'm glad that this data will be recorded along with the school resource officers covering, because there's a correlation there. I just had a school to prison pipeline meeting, community forum, along with a student who led that, and a lot of this information and these concerns were coming to light about student arrests in our schools. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Thank you so much for the thorough report. I really appreciate it, and it's a lot of information that you share with us. The one thing that I did note is that there were a lot of legislations that passed that will require us to do something, such as the mental health services, public safety, and you did mention that there were some grants and other funding available. Is it possible that we can get a chart that would show what impacts us financially and whether or not there is automatic dollars that are going to be coming to the system, if it's a competitive dollar or if there's no dollars coming? Meaning, if there's no dollars, then we have to then find the money in our budget to deal with that. Is that something that can be put together for us to review and evaluate in the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee?
Certainly, certainly. I'll point out that I did an initial review for the CFO's office, and when you look, a lot of the legislation, it may impose a requirement effective like fiscal year 20 or 21, for example. So the major impact for us, based on my review, is really going to be a year or so out for us. But everything that I can pull together, I'll synthesize in a quick chart and just show you what's coming, what's anticipated for next fiscal year, and what will be beyond.
That would be great, especially since we're moving out of FY19's budget and moving into FY20's. It's important for us to know the impact, the financial impact of these legislative pieces. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Eubanks.
Thank you. And just to piggyback on what Ms. Williams was saying about the financial impact, because I see that they're asking for mental health services coordinator for this fall. Did they say how many for the number of students? But I remember seeing or reading somewhere about, I think, Baltimore City, which has less students than us, but they have more people doing the work with the individuals.
Right.
So we need we know there's a need.
Yeah.
But we need to find out where the funds are going to come from.
So the bill only requires one person, but that's not to say that one person is going to be able to obviously execute all of the responsibilities.
It won't, all of the need. Okay, okay, anything you get on that, please let me know. So the mental health?
Sure.
I'm definitely interested in all of that information. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Because I'm working on some things.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Burrows.
Good evening. You mentioned that the school district received an additional $29 million in operating dollars.
Let's see, our increase for next fiscal year will be about $29 million, yes.
And have we already accounted for that?
Yes, sir, we have. That's in line with what our projections are. It's not additional.
Right.
Above and beyond our additional.
Got it. And $18 million in capital dollars. Is that right?
18 million in extra for the relocatable classrooms, but that's a like a targeted grant. So a minimum of 18 million extra in capital.
Got it. And the lockbox bill is going to referendum, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll know, I guess, about that in November?
You'll know in November.
Okay. Yeah, I was really hoping that that 29 million was not projected for.
No, it was definitely projected, absolutely. We do our due diligence based on our estimates, and it comes right into, what the state projected.
There was no additional that?
There's a small fluctuation. We still haven't gotten our final estimates. We rely not only on what the legislation passed, but we rely heavily on the MSDE estimates, which works closely with the legislative session. And when we got our estimates just recently, there was just a small variance, but nothing significant. And that's reflective of after session closed.
Do we know how much additional we're getting from the county?
30.
That's not accounted for.
County right now is 24.4.
Yeah, but it's all accounted for.
It's all accounted for.
That was in
24.4.
on the budget that we sent over to the county. We balanced it to what the county projection of additional revenue was and what the state revenue was, and then we brought our request that went over to the county government in line with what those projections were.
Mm-hmm. Dimitri, I guess I'm just concerned, frankly. I'm very happy to hear about this lockbox going on the ballot in November for referendum, but it's what we were already promised. I mean, when the casinos came in, the county executive promised that the money was coming to the school system. And here we are years later, and I'm hearing these projections, 100 million, 200 million, 400 million, that we've already missed out on. And I'm racking this budget, trying to find additional money for teacher compensation, and I can't quite find it. I'm trying to find it. I was talking to John about it yesterday. Well, actually, I can find it if we do some reasonable cuts, but I guess what needs to happen on this level to ensure that this referendum goes through? What should we be doing as a board? And it's going to be a tough sell because we've already, well, not we. The county executive has already promised the people of the county that this money would come to schools. And so now, once again, we have to go back to the people and say, if you do this one more thing, then this money is going to come to schools. And I think we have a credibility issue as a government. And so I guess as a board, this really isn't for you. I think as a board, instead of hiring, worthless PR consultants, we should probably focus on this, because hundreds of millions of dollars are at stake. It's not ridiculous.
Just to follow up on what Ed was saying, question, this might be for Mr. Lucci, this might be for Ms. Tobias, to piggyback off of what Mr. Burrs was saying, I guess to clarify once, the board took a position in support of this, correct?
Yes.
Can the board?
This is a statewide bill, so the referendum is all voters in Maryland are going to be voting on it. It's not affecting just Prince George's. Just want to be clear about that.
Okay. And then can the board take an advocacy role beyond a position of support on a bill? Can we take an advocacy role beyond what we've done in Annapolis?
That's not a administrative Demetri Tobias.
Is that a Len Lucci question?
I think it's a board question for the board to discuss, but Dr. Eubanks and others can certainly.
So then I guess, Mr. Lucci, are there limitations to any type of advocacy efforts the board can take on this?
The board could pass a resolution urging voters to support it in the fall. It cannot use any of its resources in furtherance of that, because then that would be political activity and that would be prohibited, but it can certainly take a position.
Okay, so colleagues, I think we should think about that. And I can work on it, and if there are other folks that are aligned with that, Mr. Burrows, Ms. Grady, I see, Mr. Murray. We can look into that, and then perhaps bring it back at another time.
Thank you. So I got just first a follow-up question on that I wasn't clear about the capital budget that I know we got the additional money for the specialized grant. And so what does the $313.9 million kind of represent? That's the statewide
public
right.
school construction
and
program.
how much larger is that from the previous year? Do we know?
No, not right off, but I can definitely get it for you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. Just want to check with my team of tech folks. Are we good? All right, we are going to go back to our news break from the beginning called A Catastrophic Lesson.
What are you going to do about this flooded school?
Oh, I said, we just gonna have to shut it down.
Okay.
And then we can move it to another school, right?
Flooded schools, impassable roads, stranded people. All dire consequences of a hurricane were part of a recent lesson on disaster preparedness for students in Suitland High School's Academy of Homeland Security and Military Science. Gathered in the county's state-of-the-art Office of Emergency Management, each student was assigned a role, be it mayor, public information officer, school superintendent, on a crack team dealing with simulated Hurricane Sully. And even though the students were just rookies, they had no time to lose. Lives were at stake.
So this is a real life scenario. So just think if, this was really, really happening, you guys got to be able to make decisions and work together and communicate. So if you're going to decide to evacuate, be able to articulate why you're going to evacuate and where you're going to evacuate to.
It was a little bit tough getting them into their roles because they just came in there and they're like, oh, what are we doing? Oh, we have to answer questions. They didn't even look at their roles yet. So they need to read their roles, get set, have that foundation set, and then start playing them in Disasterville situation.
Do they feel the urgency?
Oh, yes. There's a time clock in the room, so they can see it ticking down as they're going through their pages of questions. We actually had to split up the pages between different functions so that they can answer all the questions. And as you can see, each function had to speak, so it gets them more public speaking experience as well.
Plotting their every move on the Disasterville map, the student troubleshooters worried if helicopters in hurricanes made any sense, and if a contaminated water supply, for instance, was a reason to panic.
For you to panic, then be sick and injured, and it's going to come back to the mayor and all of our jobs. And
when would you use a helicopter? When would you use a helicopter?
I guess probably when the wind has probably died down a bit, or like
the next day.
Yeah, probably the next day.
As the emergency teams shared their decisions, some of which would require some fancy fiscal footwork, Instructor Rolenberg stressed that any course of action had to pass one very important test.
Can you explain your decision? That's the main thing. So that when the public comes and says, why did you choose that option, they want to know why you did. So you have to be able to explain. You just can't say because I said so.
I'm going to talk to the state and the whole country to give me some more money.
Okay.
Then.
So you're going to ask for grant money?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Then, no offense, that school already flooded. The budget for that school, back in my pocket. But it definitely broadened my horizon. I definitely learned some stuff that I didn't know previous, and a lot of people don't even know about Homeland Security. Like when I say I'm in that class, people don't know about it. So I say it was worth it.
And while no grades were given, the student actors got some very enthusiastic thumbs up from their trainers.
They actually exceeded my expectations. They got engaged. In the beginning, they were a little leery about what their roles were, but then once they started to understand what the objective of the game is or the simulation is, they actually got into it and they actually rose above what we expected. They actually really did come up with some creative ideas of how to tackle some of the issues that were thrown at them.
Were there any superstars in your room, people who you would like to hire if you had the chance?
Of course. The kids that presented are great. They had some really interesting ideas on how to solve problems.
And while most of the students have never had to cope with a serious disaster, they learned they could survive one by simply remembering to be prepared. Have you ever been through anything where you've kind of panicked and thought, my gosh, something's happening here and I got to do something?
Well, when I was younger, my brother thought it was going to be a hurricane. It was a lot of wind going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to calm him down.
It's
but
good.
I never have had to worry about anything like that.
What I'm hoping for is that they have an understanding that, first of all, disasters start locally, they end locally. And if anything, that they prepare for a possible disaster. We want them to basically take home the message that we have to be self-sufficient for at least 24 to 48 hours. And I'm talking about the family unit has to be self-sufficient. So you've got to create a preparedness kit. You've got to have an idea of where you're going to go and meet your family members if something happens.
So, whether the Academy students end up as emergency managers, first responders, cybersecurity agents, or anything else, their demonstrated cool heads under fire will serve them well and is something we all can celebrate right along with them. Congratulations to the Suitland Lifesavers and all the Prince George's students in college and career readiness programs. This is Dave Zarin reporting.
That's tremendous work being done by our Academy on Homeland Security. Thank you, board members who paid close attention to it. Dr. Maxwell, how many of these career academies have we developed over the past few years?
I mean, we
Come on.
got one in every. We got a couple in some of our schools, and
we have approximately 3 to 5 academies in each of our high schools, and we have over 22 high schools.
Over 22 high schools with academies, and each one of them, many of them developed just in recent years.
Yes.
To give career
Not in
opportunities
just
for our
recent years,
students.
but within the last 8 years.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. That's the great work that we see our students achieving and our community partners joining us on. Thank you very much for that work. We'll now move on to public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. We have 17 registered speakers today. Citizens, I will remind you that first you must speak on the topic for which you've been registered. The board will listen to your comments but cannot address your comments. At the sound of the buzzer, you may complete your final sentence only. You may not relinquish any part of your speaking time to another registered or unregistered individual. You are encouraged to use titles rather than names, for example, board member, CEO, executive director, etc. If you do have a written copy of your statement, please leave it to the right of the microphone stand so that we can have it for our public record. And your adherence to these guidelines will help enable the public comment process to move smoothly. We'll begin with speakers registered for agenda items, all for agenda item 9.0, and we will begin with Paul Shackelford speaking on options for Turning Point Academy. Mr. Shackelford.
Thank you. Can you give me some more time? Okay. The first time that I spoke, I mentioned that part of our reason for founding Turning Point Academy was to get out in front of the 9th graders that repeat and then drop out of school, creating the well-known pipeline to prison. We wanted to do our part to eliminate that trend here in Prince George's County, and we have and are doing so. We've attended graduations at Bowie State, A&T, University of Maryland, and others, and heard students that graduated from Prince George's County state that they got good grades, but they had to take remedial classes when they were freshmen. So that's why we want to add the 9th to the 12th grades. I have personally seen properties in Prince George's County with Dr. Crawley. He was the interim superintendent, and before he left, we both thought that John Carroll would have been a great fit for us, but that just didn't work out because there were other plans for that building. We've seen over 50 buildings to purchase. We've placed letters of intent to purchase those buildings, but we've been outbid. What would really help us is a 5-year renewal to be able to secure bond financing. We already have secured $600,000 in business lines of credit, but we've never been in a situation where we needed to use that money because we budget properly, even though we provide busing. We've had several charter renewals, and they have all gone very well. There were never any problems mentioned. As a matter of fact, during the 2014 renewal process, it was noted by Prince George's County that TPA provides a unique educational offering for Prince George's County students, remains faithful to its charter, and maintains its finances according to standards. And that's a direct quote from the folks that reviewed us. And it still exists today. We have submitted a plan that addresses governance capacity as it relates to academic goals and facility acquisition to address the concerns about a new building. We have asked if you would work together and build on the Fairwood property with us that has 15 acres for a school, and if not, could we possibly help by renovating Woodmore Elementary if and when it is vacated by the county? These are just a couple thoughts we had moving forward. I've had conversations with the Fairwood chairman of the board. Okay, thank you. And to help with the equity of that type of project. We have the largest farms in any of the Prince George's County charter schools, roughly about 70% of our students, 70%. And we are the only charter school that provides busing for our students. I negotiated that contract with the bus service, and so it is family friendly. This means a lot to our parents that depend on this level of help to survive economically, realizing that this is a huge benefit that they are receiving due to our board of directors and my negotiations.
Thank you, Mr. Shackelford.
Can I finish this last sentence?
Last sentence, yes, last sentence.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So we're asking that your votes to approve our plan to keep TPA open and our board of directors in place, and also to keep me in place as the executive director for the renewal period of 5 years to take TPA to excellence.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Deborah Shackelford.
My name is Deborah Shackelford, one of the founders of Turning Point Academy. I am here today to request that you renew our charter with the county. We submitted our charter renewal documents on time. Time constraints today prevent me from addressing all the accusations that have been railed against us from the Charter Review Board. I urge you to look at our accomplishments to determine if you think these can be accomplished without the competent, dedicated team. Turning Point Academy is the only charter school to offer free busing. Currently, we have over 600 students, a waiting list of over 1,000. 70% of our population served are farms. Our 8th graders are outperforming county and state. Our 8th graders have typically been with us for 2 years or more. Fiscally, we are fiscally sound for all 11 years of operation. These type of accomplishments do not happen without great leadership. Board member complement includes lawyers, engineers, teachers, accountants, lending specialists, and the former Prince George's County Public Schools Director of Security, most of which have served on other boards and are well acquainted with what is required to serve on a board. One of our board members have sponsored a STEM and robotics seminar to take place next month for our 5th through 8th graders. Our executive director is the face of the board. He ensures that all decisions concerning the board, concerning the school, are executed. He pays the vendors, oversees building maintenance, establishes community relationship, ensures that all legal documents concerning TPA are filed. He negotiates our contracts and oversees jobs to ensure that the product was delivered. He has ensured that TPA is fiscally sound and is also responsible for recovering hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding from the county. Our request for charter renewal was delivered, and some amendments were requested. We did all the requested amendments, and at that time, the review board made it known that it was our choice whether we wanted to make the changes or not. All they do is recommend whether or not they will say we can keep the school to the school board, but it is the Prince George's County School Board that makes the decision to close TPA. Board structure was amended 8 months ago per their recommendation. All documents that were requested were also provided. In March, the review board informed TPA of their intent to close the school. They stated low test scores, no curriculum writer on the board, and transportation funds should have been used for a facility. Hours later, the review board went to our teachers and told the teachers the same thing, except they cited inadequate board governance. We are more than capable of caring for our students. It's evident. Our students are exemplary. We ask that you please renew the charter, keep our board intact, and our executive director. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Terry Floriot.
My name is Terry Floriot, and I am the mother of 3 children at TPA in kindergarten, 4th, and 5th grade. As a means of supporting the school, I joined the TPA board in 2015. I'm here to express my pressing desire that TPA remain open and operational under the leadership of TPA Foundation. I believe that the framework on which TPA was founded is solid and that the foundation can take TPA to the next level. I believe that a drastic change in leadership at this vulnerable stage would do more harm than good and would come at an exorbitant cost. Members of the TPA board and staff have been working diligently to craft a proposal for moving forward that would effectively address the concerns outlined by the administrative team, as well as position the school to excel in academics, to further meet the terms of its charter, and to relocate to another facility. Some elements of the proposal include, number 1, governance, to restructure the board with a framework that involves board members, parents, staff, teachers, and experts that embodies transparency and focuses on results. We would implement a no excuses environment where the bar is raised, increase capacity by aggressively seeking skilled professionals to participate on the board, increase accountability in terms of participation and structure, increase training, and establish strong expectations for results. We would adjust the format to establish committees for projects. One example would be the evaluation committee, which would have the responsibility of conducting a robust mid-year and annual review of the executive director. A new strategic plan has been drafted, and concerns regarding any conflicts of interest were addressed last summer. Number 2, facility acquisition. We would acquire a new facility in central PG County that would adequately meet the needs of our students and improve their learning environment. By establishing a facilities committee, which would have the responsibility of locating and securing a new facility, as well as establishing a fundraising committee with the sole purpose of raising funds for that new facility. Number 3 is academics, to provide additional support and analyses to address achievement gaps. Ultimately, we are committed to acting in the best interests of the staff, students, and parents of TPA. Please consider adopting the proposal where TPA continues to operate under the leadership of Turning Point Academy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Florio. Our next speaker is Kevin Shea, speaking on Turning Point Academy.
Good evening. My name is Kevin C.A., and I'm currently one of the 6th and 8th grade math teachers. Ardmore Elementary, New Hope Academy, Longfit Elementary, Walker Mill, Queen Anne School, Bishop McNamara High School. I stand before you a proud product of Prince George's County. Though I'm not strictly a product of the public school system, I am a product of the collective educational community in this county. My parents wanted the absolute best educational environment for me to become my best self. They worked tirelessly to find a place where I was challenged intellectually and supported both emotionally and socially. The parents who form our community found a school that challenges its students to become better academically and spiritually. I got into teaching because of the things I witnessed and experienced. I grew up hearing each one reach one, over and over. My experiences have ingrained the painful lesson that you can't save everyone. However, I have dedicated my life to doing the best that I can for all that I can for as long as I can. My students had the opportunity to find a home here at Turning Point Academy. Many have been students here for 5 or more years. Even those who joined our family as recently as this year have become another thread woven into this tapestry. Here, we have a dedicated period every week to stop everything and just share. I give the floor to my students, reminding them to be open, honest, and respectful of one another. The stories they tell and the feelings they share every week are beyond amazing. Our students share stories of tremendous triumph and extreme pain. Since my first day, I have seen my students grow into wonderful young adults who transcend the assumed limitations of their zip code. Our community is a safe harbor for them to release and be supported, to fall and be helped back up, to extend beyond themselves, to build the foundation for who they are and the greatness they will inevitably share with the world. I have been called a mentor, a father, and an uncle, and I cherish every connection and every bit of trust these kids place in me. I cannot call myself an educator if I didn't stand up for them in this moment. As I stated above, honesty and integrity are paramount to me in my classroom. I cannot stand before you and attest that Turning Point Academy public charter school is perfect. I will not say there is no area for improvement. If that was the case, we would not be here right now. I will say that our students will not find another school that supports and challenges its students the way that we do. I will say that I believe our students will not be better off in the schools they are zoned for. Our scores show that we are doing good work here. Our students come from all corners of this county and every space within. I ask that you reconsider any option that breaks apart my students' community. Allow our Turning Point family to continue to educate and elevate one another. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. C.A. I appreciate that. We will now move on to speakers for non-agenda items. Our first speaker on non-agenda items is Sandra Shirley, Barnaby Manor Citizens Association, to speak on administrative procedure on after-school facilities use.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Shirley. I'm the president of the Barnaby Manor Citizens Association in Oxon Hill, Maryland. The Barnaby Manor Citizens Association, Incorporated, was registered in the state of Maryland June 12, 1964. Formed itself around 1955, the Barnaby Manor Citizens Association is a small civic community organization in Oxon Hill, Prince George's County, Maryland, and we meet the first Thursday of every month at the Barnaby Manor Elementary School on Owens Road, and we've met there for more than 60 years since the school opened. On making application to use the school for the 2017-18 year last July, we found out that the new requirement, AP 1330, would have all applicants for after-school use of all of these school facilities throughout the county have to have a $1 million in general commercial liability insurance coverage. While we are thankful for the waiver to June 30th, 2018 for meeting this new requirement, we contend that AP 1330 needs to be revised because it will devastate all small civic and community organizations throughout Prince George's County. Please note the following. 1, there was no public notice or public hearing prior to adoption or implementation. 2, while there was no notice about the adoption or implementation, the application for 2017 was our notice. What are the impacts? Throughout the county, many small and civic organizations throughout the county hold their regular meetings in the school facilities, and most have met for an inordinate amount of years, 60 plus. Most of them have no community center in their area. They're registered in the state of Maryland with bylaws, but they don't have a 501c3 or other IRS designation. The problem also is that the insurance companies require about $400 for this insurance, as well as an IRS designation. We ask that the board extend the time beyond June 30th and develop a framework for the inclusion of our community organizations. We ask that you invite all of the civic and community organizations to these public hearings, and most of all, consider forming or brokering an affordable insurance coverage, maybe about $25, $15 a year, through a cooperative insurance for all of the small county civic and community organizations that you would have required to get insurance. We implore you to take positive action on this matter as soon as possible before the June 30th deadline. Essentially, the deadline that's a death sentence for all small civic and community organizations in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shirley. Our next speaker is Barbara Solner Webb, speaking on school facilities use.
Hello, I'm Barbara Solner Webb, president of the West Laurel Civic Association, not surprisingly up in West Laurel. I'm a 46-year resident of the county, and our daughter excelled through all the years of Prince George's Public Schools. I've been in education my entire life. I'm a professor at Johns Hopkins University. I'm coming to you to express my great confusion. I thought that Prince George's County school systems wants to educate young people to become responsible and caring citizens. And I would hope that the Prince George's County school system would want to promote civic involvement, both because it makes the involved families want to be more involved in the school system, which is something that at least the school system's party line encourages, and because it sets a great example for the students to see and want to emulate. Additionally, it is my understanding that the citizens pay the salary of School Superintendent Dr. Kevin Maxwell and the school board and all the school staff, and it is the citizens who pay to build all the schools through their taxes. Indeed, when one says one gets a grant of Maryland state money, that is the citizens' tax money. So it's most confusing or counterproductive for the school system to want to slap on an enormous charge for civic associations and other citizen groups to continue to hold their meetings at local public school buildings, which they've done for decades. And I would like to very much thank our previous speaker for her excellent proposal of how to solve this by having group insurance that is a minimum cost to each organization.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as you know, it is our policy is not to address public comment, but we can provide clarity on factual information. And on this particular issue, we've been doing some work on this issue, and so I want the administration to provide factual information about the issue on school facilities use. You do that, Dr. Maxwell?
Thank you, Dr. Eubanks. We appreciate the civic and community organizations that have been coming out and talking about the new regulation, which was put in place for some pretty important reasons, but we do understand the challenges that it is creating for some of our smallest organizations. But we've been having these conversations with our fraternities and sororities and other groups in the county as well. So we have made a decision to extend the requirement for insurance for the next school year, and we are in the beginning process of pulling together a conversation with some insurance carriers and other people about finding a way to do the cooperative insurance, if there's a way to do the cooperative insurance that was suggested by the two speakers earlier tonight. So I know we have some other people to speak on it, but we do want you to understand that we have heard the conversation, we understand the concern, and we've been having these conversations with some of our groups for a couple of months, and we have made a decision to extend it for this school year and to pull together a group that will help us navigate that issue.
Thank you, Dr. Maxwell. Thank you for that clarification. We'll move on to our next speaker, Rashida Belfield, speaking on security at Greenbelt Middle School.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rashida Belfield.
Could you hold on, Ms. Belfield? Make sure that mic is on. You push that little button. Make sure it's
you gotta
blue.
push the button. It
might have been on already. Oh, just speak.
It's on.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Rashida Belfield, and currently I have two kids that attend the PG, Prince George's County Public School Systems. And I'm just going to read you a few statements that my child and I hear, and then I'll continue. I suspended that kid for nothing. Your eye is fine today, from a security staff. Since you have your parents emailing about grades, everyone gets a 0. A teacher, I don't care if it's an emergency. I don't care if you're bleeding menstrual blood through your pants. You will not go to the bathroom. Teacher. Teacher 2 is another student. Who is raising her? Her mother, or is she raising? Who is raising her? Is the student raising the mother, or is the mother raising the student? This is something that was said to another student by another teacher on the staff at Greenbelt Middle School. Teacher, if there's a problem in my class, why didn't you contact me? The teacher's response is, why didn't you contact me? You start everything, and you're always wrong. Security staff. When getting into investigation, the security supervisor has called and yelled at me several times when my daughter was assaulted, and told me several times, have you followed the process? Have you followed the process? Upon saying yes, I have, he hangs up. Teachers won't put grades in and give the students failing grades for no reason when the administration is aware. The administration, you don't have an advocate. Your mom doesn't make enough phone calls. She's not an advocate for you. Oh, the suspension was overturned and nobody contacted you. My apologies. Meanwhile, my child was out of school for 3 days, didn't get to make it for work yet. That was the first quarter. Bullying, people following her on the bus is being reported, nothing's being done. These are just some of the examples of the behavior my child has been subjected to while attending Greenbelt Middle School for the last 2 years. There have been many things said and done that have been very damaging to my child. With the climate that we're in, we cannot afford to continue to let our children be subject to the environments that encourage and incite riot-like school environments. Administration, security, and teaching staff have repeatedly proved that they don't have any gumption or integrity when attempting to educate the students at Greenbelt Middle. The staff bullies the students, and I have plenty of examples over the last 2 years. If there's no correction of what is going on at the top of the school, there will be chaos at the bottom, which is apparent with this school. Check the records, ask around, you'll see. These children shouldn't be subject to this. I have attended Prince George's County Public Schools, elementary, middle, and graduated. I have also been an educator for 5 years here, and I think it's something that needs to be done. I have to undo the damage that's been done. She still has 4 more years of schooling, and then I have to encourage her that she can still trust the staff and administration for her high school years. Something has to change. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. Our next speaker is Belinda Queen on facility use.
Is someone going to follow up with that parent?
Thank you.
Good evening to the chair and the board members. I am the Honorable Belinda Queen, who has been elected by the people of the 25th District of Prince George's County to represent their needs by my voice to speak out. Yet my heart represents all the people of Prince George's County. As the Vice President of the Central Coalition of Prince George's County, a letter was sent to the CEO and some of the board members to express our members' concern on this matter of the required insurance. In saying this, I'm here tonight to speak on the outrage and dissatisfaction of the community members for this school board and a lot of your decision-making. The one today I'm here to speak on is the requirement, again, as I said, about us to show our organization to have $1 million commercial general liability insurance covered. What bothers me the most of all is sitting on this board is a lot of members knowing that the civil associations around this county cannot afford it. I find this another way of you guys keeping the community from meeting, collaborating, and working together. Prince George's County Public Schools started the Parents, Family, and Community Engagement Department, yet your visions talks about, and I'm going to, you know your vision, but I'm going to read this part of your mission, which said, the mission is best accomplished through promoting relationship, theories, and customer service principles to inform best practice that encourage partnerships between family, schools, and the communities. What a slap in the face. Your mission. How dare you set a mission that you really don't stick to? How can you expect the community parents and family members to want to partner with a self-serving, one-sided organization? Part of the partnership would be to collaborate with the civil association and other nonprofits who are part of the local community. As many of our caring leaders work hard to envision Prince George's County as a livable, workable, playable, educational, many of our organizations donate paper, pencils, uniforms to help to the local schools and other funds, and we take the time to sustain our local schools. Calm down, Belinda, okay? What you don't find, or you take care of sustaining our schools in the budget, you don't do it. It's many other ways to handle this, but it's unexplainable to me why you never think of creative ways to support the community, to support the students. Who would not meet this? Most of the civic association organizations only meet 6 or 7 months out of a year. In closing, as I remind each of you that you were elected and appointed to serve, I say this all the time, the citizens of this great county, you need to learn to be a light in Prince George's County as you represent. And doing this, learn to find many creative and practical ways of showing the people you represent unexpected love, patience, kindness while you're serving. May God bless you and bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Queen. Our next speaker is Carolyn Moran to speak on the principal hiring process, Whitehall Elementary. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name, but
no, you're fine. Hi, my name is Carolyn Brady Moran, and I stand in front of you as the prior PTA president and with the current PTA president of Whitehall Elementary. We've chosen to be direct and brief, having 3 parent leaders speak to you today and 4 parent leaders attending from Whitehall Elementary on behalf of our general PTA. We are all product of PG County Public School System, elementary, middle, and high school. So we are here to ask that you take into consideration the Whitehall community's input during our principal hiring process. Our current principal, our beloved principal, is retiring. We have a petition of over 210 signatures, 10 of them being on paper and the rest being online. And I've shared that with various people at PGCPS. And this petition is in support of our current vice principal stepping in as principal next year. Our school faces many challenges, being under-resourced and overcapacity by almost 200 children. Our vice principal has helped to create an environment that is best able to succeed under these conditions and knows all 600 of those kids. Our facilities and our resources are old, and in most circumstances, this would inhibit the potential of your students. However, our school culture and our community is so exceptional and supportive that we have found a way to succeed despite all of our challenges. Our vice principal has been instrumental in this process. For example, I saw our vice principal be so thoughtful in restructuring our lunch as our school kept growing and create a staggered lunch and a better dumping plan that had a monumental impact on my children and all of the children in our school. And it's this type of adapting that makes her best fit to fill the principal role. In addition to her administrator duties, she leads or facilitates a plethora of activities that impact all the students at Whitehall. It is essential that PGCPS be conscious of this community and our school because disruption to our processes would jeopardize everything the school has accomplished and its future possibilities. In conclusion, please allow our vice principal to continue the forward momentum that she and our principal have established at Whitehall. We have an incredibly successful and strong school, and our vice principal is the best choice to maintain the continuity of our culture and curriculum. To our CEO, I've shared an email with you and many others at PGCPS, and if you haven't seen it, I really ask that you personally read it because it cites the numerous examples of what she's done for us. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have someone so vital to put our support behind, like Ms. Farmer, and to be able to share this with you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Candace Peters.
Good evening, board members. My name is Dr. Candace Peters, and I'm fortunate to have 2 children at Whitehall Elementary School. I have lived in Prince George's County for my entire life, and I've attended schools within the Prince George's County public school system, eventually graduating from Oxon Hill High School. I moved to the Whitehall Elementary School zone for the sole purpose of being part of the Whitehall family. I sent my oldest daughter to Whitehall knowing that the environment that our then principal fostered would allow her to be successful, challenged, and nurtured simultaneously. We have had an amazing faculty, and we were lucky to have our current principal placed at our school when our last principal left. Needless to say, our Whitehall family was saddened to learn of our current principal's retirement, and we have voiced our concerns regarding the process of choosing the future leader of our school. Our school has been recognized for its excellence on so many levels, such as the National Blue Ribbon Award in 2012, E-Gate in 2017, and the Science Bowl champions this year. Whitehall has above average ratings on School Digger, Great Schools, and Niche, and from the mouths of our students, parents, and faculty. In 2017, the Prince George's County Board of Education CEO was quoted by saying, "Whitehall exemplifies the gold standard of gifted and talented education in our state," and I couldn't agree more. Our school has maintained its excellent status because of our families are being involved and our teachers and leaders having the best interests of our children at heart. We request this year, just as we have requested in the past, to be included in the process of finding a new leader who will support the current faculty and staff, assist in their development and retention, as well as attract new, energetic teachers with the promise of bringing new insight to the ever-changing classroom. Once again, we at Whitehall Elementary are lucky because we have someone within our walls who has shown she has all these qualities. She is nationally board certified and has been serving Prince George's County for 23 years. She is an adjunct professor, has served in an administrative role at Whitehall for 9 years, as the vice principal for the past 2 years. She has shown that she is capable and willing to be present for our children and nurture the climate that is already in place. She has shown her ability to carry on the vision of leading our children to academic success and further development of a superior learning and working environment. Thank you for your time and for your consideration for Ms. Cynthia Farmer as the next principal for Whitehall Elementary School.
Thank you, Ms. Peters. I hope folks don't mind if I go slightly out of my order. So is LaToya Britton? She's not here? Okay. All right. Our next speaker is Rosina Simmons.
Question, would administration like to provide factual info around this like they did with the Civic Association
I don't
members?
think they have that, or I would have
I'm just asking. If not, then it's fine, but. About Whitehall?
Nope.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Rosina Simmons. Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Rosina Simmons, and I'm with the WISE PTSO, that's Dr. Henry Wise Parent Teacher Student Organization. We would like to respectfully request an increase in allocation of funds for security on campus during school hours and after school hours for events. One security officer provided is not sufficient. The school has to pay for additional coverage out of their own operating budget. These funds are needed for additional teaching staff, teacher supplies, professional development, health room supplies, cleaning supplies, and miscellaneous purchases. Overcrowded classrooms are unsafe. WISE average class size for core classes are bursting at the seams, 35 and upward. Additional funding would allow the principal to hire additional teachers and security. We currently have 7 security officers and 5 SROs to cover almost 3,000 students. I have walked the halls as a parent. The 3 years I've been there, they cannot cover 3,000 students. 1 SRO is purchased out of the principal's school operating budget so that she can have additional security to provide safety for our students and the staff. Staff shouldn't be allowed to enter the restrooms as a new policy. I'm against that. Students cut classes. I've been in the restrooms. They're hiding out in there because they know there are not any cameras, and adults are not permitted to go into the restrooms unless it's with cause. Students need to feel safe, and we're listening to our students at our recent town hall meetings. The students don't feel safe, the parents feel unsafe, and the teachers don't feel safe. We ask that you revisit this policy so we can better protect our students and monitor the school and the restrooms at Dr. Henry Wise. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you so much, Ms. Simmons. Our next speaker is Ebony Voss, about overcrowded classrooms.
I don't think she's here. She's with me.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Claudette Clark. Is Claudette Clark here? No, she didn't go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. My comments are going to be on behalf of Prince George's County Educator Association. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge that I believe that many of the board members are a product of Prince George's County Public Schools themselves, and some have actually ignored the call of private schools and have children, grandchildren, and relatives who are educated in Prince George's County Public Schools. And for those who do not have those kind of connections, I'm hoping and trusting that you have the best interests of the community stakeholders, that being children, parents, staff, and community members of Prince George's County Public Schools. There's a growing lack of respect for Prince George's County educators who are on the forefront of the fight for a highly educated society. And I'm asking this board to do what is right to rid Prince George's County Public Schools of this. Because of the many audits that seem to have taken over our school system, I've noticed our frontline staff, like the counselors from Duval, who've had their employment negatively impacted. I've noticed schools across this county are suffering from lack of substitute teachers, which has resulted in teachers substituting an excessive amount of planning time hours each week and putting not only their sanity and stress levels at risk, but putting also at risk effective lessons, safe and orderly building operations. This is unacceptable. Recently, my principal informed us that financial auditors who are not in the classrooms have decided, and the principal has accepted, that teachers will no longer be paid the prohibitive $18 per hour when either a general educator or a special educator is pulled or absent from a quota classroom. The result of this decision is I am already seeing special educators being pulled from the quota classrooms to cover classes. Not only does this violate our special education children's legal IEPs, but it puts good instructions at risk. I recently completed a master's program and received a raise of $3,000, a lane increase. But I noticed from the information that was disclosed recently that one staff member who came in 2017 received a raise of $34,000. One other $50,000 increase from 2013 to 2017, another $36,000 from 2015 to 2017, another $47,000 from 2013 to, and then the list goes on. Any of these increases would actually pay off the student loan I had to get that master's degree. Clearly, it is a lack of regard for staff who are on the forefront of the fight for a highly educated society.
Dr. Eubanks?
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Dr.
Ms.
Eubanks,
Clark.
does the administration want to respond?
Second. So our next speaker is Brett Bracken to speak about certified vocational training. Is Brett Bracken here? Brett Bracken, are you here this evening? Thank you. Our next speaker is Phyllis Wright.
Good evening. My name is Phyllis Wright. I know you said don't call no one out, but Kevin Maxwell, you got too much authority on my tax dollars. You have too many people that you giving raises
Ms. Wright.
to. That's not, no.
Ms. Wright.
That's not
Ms.
in
Ms.
the
Wright,
forefront. These teachers
I'm just
are
going to ask you
there
to please
with these children.
respect our process, Ms. Wright, and say whatever
I'm not
you
being
like,
disrespectful.
respect our process. Thank you.
I'm not being disrespectful, and I'm
We
not
have-
going.
we have the
I'm not
procedures
going
in-
to. I'm
hold-
not
hold
going
her
to.
time, please. Hold
Mr.
her
Chair,
time. Hold her time.
Please hold her time.
Hold her time, yes. Thank
She
you.
lost about 20
yes,
seconds.
thank you. Yes, we'll make sure you get every bit of your time back.
Well, CEO.
Please respect.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Why do we have a CEO and a superintendent? I mean, that's too much. He has too much authority. Who is his boss? Now, my tax dollars and everybody in here that works and pay taxes, tell me, please, tell me, why is it that he can give these raises and none of these people are out in the field with these children? None of these people are in these classrooms. I am a parent. I volunteer all the time. All the time. I don't see near one of you in none of these classrooms unless there's a problem, and then you don't solve the solution. So tell me, why do you need all of this money when you're not doing anything? You making this place like a corporation instead of a school system. You harming our children. You're not helping us. Fawcett, you got them in run-down, infested building. Now you're telling us to wait about the cameras. The cameras come from you all. Now you in charge of facility. They're going to throw you under the bus because they're going to say you put it in there. Now we know where the cameras came from. Now what are you looking for? What are you looking for? Teach our children. You need to be gone. Why are we paying you? I'm tired of my tax dollars going to you and you're not doing nothing. CEO, right? That's what I call him. I call him a waste of my money. That's what I call him, a waste of my money. Now, you know too. You know too. Now, all of you all should feel very, very disappointed with yourselves. Anytime you take money from these children, we got children with IPs who are not getting the proper care that they need because you people are putting the money in your damn pockets. It just don't make no sense. Help those babies. Help those children. That's what you need to do. Help. If you have a heart, I volunteer free and you pay it. Get out of here, please. You need to leave. You need to be
Excuse
gone.
me.
Don't excuse me. Don't excuse. Listen. Don't you excuse me.
I'm going to ask you to please. I'm going to ask you to please not be. Yes.
Hold her time. Hold her time.
But
hold her
you're
time.
going to have to.
Point of order.
Right. You're going to have to. I'm only going to ask that we. Okay. All right. You get to express anything that you want to express. And I'm going to give you the time to do it, but I'm just going to ask that you respect the process and do it in a respectful way. I understand how you feel. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you. Go ahead, start the time. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wright.
No, I'm not going to thank you, sir. I'm not going to thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Who's in these classrooms?
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Wright. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Wright. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Wright. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wright. Thank you. Thank you. Our final speaker this evening is Andrea Christensen. Is Andrea Christensen here? I know she was on the list. We want to make sure she got properly on the list. Our friends from Whitehall? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Andrea Christensen. I'm speaking on behalf of the Whitehall PTA membership and our entire community. I'm the former Whitehall Elementary vice principal. The recent retirement announcement of our current principal was met with sadness by our entire community. Based on our previous experience with new principal selection, we also have had a wave of apprehension sweep through our community. Let me first say that I think we got really lucky with our current principal, but I don't think that luck was generated by the quality of the principal selection process here in PGCPS. I'm here tonight to urge the board to provide more clarity and transparency in how the school system goes about selecting a new principal for a school, and to demand that the families and school communities be allowed more participation in that process. My oldest child was at Whitehall when our previous principal departed. A community engagement meeting was held at the school, which I attended along with many other Whitehall parents. We discussed and listed qualities that we believed our new school leader should have, and the PGCPS administrators running the meeting took away our nice, neat chart paper lists with promises that our input, thoughts, and concerns would be taken into account during the selection process. However, the announcement of our new principal came so shortly after the meeting that we felt as though our input had been meaningless. We felt as though our concerns had been discarded, like the meeting had been a sham, a complete waste of everyone's time. There is another one of those meetings this coming Thursday at our school. I will be there, but other parents like me who were at the school for the departure of our last principal shared the feeling that this meeting is simply paying lip service to the parents while the county does whatever it wants. We got lucky with our current principal. We are extremely concerned that we will not have the same luck this time around, especially since we feel like the county administrators did not really want or use our input the last time we went through this process. We have someone in our building right now who our school community feels will be the best fit to become our new principal. Our former PTA president, who spoke earlier, mentioned that our petition has collected over 200 signatures in support of this person taking on a new role as principal. Our current vice principal has been in our building for 9 years. She has seen our school grow from a newly reopened building into one of the most sought-after elementary schools in Prince George's County. Whitehall Elementary School students achieve at the highest levels despite facing many hardships. Remember hashtag Fix Whitehall's Heat? Those hardships include an aging school building with many maintenance issues, large class sizes, and extreme overcrowding. Our building capacity is around 415 students, and our current population is 600 and growing. Our current vice principal has helped our school navigate these challenges while continuing to thrive. The strained circumstances under which our school operates could easily overwhelm someone brought in from outside our school community and throw the delicate balance we have achieved through strong school-family partnerships into turmoil. Why would you not select the current vice principal who is so familiar with the needs of the children in our school community to lead our school? Whitehall Elementary is one of the top performing elementary schools in the county. Continuity of leadership would be a logical choice to keep it that way. In closing, I would urge you to listen to the voices of the community you have been elected or appointed to serve. Whitehall Elementary families are telling you loud and clear what we want. We want the next principal of our school to be Miss Cynthia Farmer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Christensen, and thank you all for coming to public comment this evening.
Mr. Chair, point of order. A person in the audience told me that they signed up to speak, but when I got to the board meeting, I didn't see the name on the list, so I said that there was nothing that I could do. Since you just allowed this other person to speak, will you also allow?
I did not allow anybody. My board office gave me someone who is a registered speaker.
Okay, just wasn't on the on this list.
Yes, exactly. But they had been registered, but they just forgot to put them on the list.
Okay.
So I will ask that the person who registered to be sure that they deal with it. So I get the user list that is given to me by the board staff. So this is someone who was a confirmed register.
Ms. Chase, did you register?
I'm sorry, I can speak on behalf of the last speaker. That person was omitted from the list as an error by the board office, so we had to allow her to
I guess I'm trying to figure out, was there also another error about this other parent?
So we don't know that, but we'll investigate that. But to our knowledge, there has not been. So I'm going to go on ahead and move on to the remainder of the agenda.
Well, I mean, I believe that the parent is here, and I think 3 minutes of our time to hear from a concerned parent is a time well used. I mean, the parent told me that she signed up to speak. I don't know what happened. I have no clue.
So look, what I'm going to do, because we go down a slippery slope and then you pull this again and again. But I'm going to allow this parent to speak. I will allow them. Not in this particular case. It's like, so we can't have it so that every week this happens.
No, I didn't.
And I got to respect my board staff because they work really hard to get this right. Now that said, I got someone here that wants to speak. I'm gonna give them their 3 minutes. So what is? Do you know who the person's name is, Ms. Tate?
Yes, it is Keisha Chase.
Excuse me. Keisha Chase.
It is Miss Chase.
So, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna put it on record now. If you're not registered to speak by the board, I'm not gonna allow you to speak. But go ahead, Ms. Chase.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Burrows. I come before you today again as a concerned citizen, a parent, a taxpayer. CEO, it blows my mind that you've given all of these raises, shall we say. You have teachers that are in the trenches every day. A lot of them don't even make $47,000. They're teachers, they're mothers, they're fathers, they're mentors to our babies. Shame on you. The last meeting, I spoke, and I threw my paper down, and I said to you, here are your walking papers. It makes absolutely no sense that you can sit in front of us, this board meeting.
I'm going to ask that you speak more generally, not speak directly to folks. Just speak generally, please. Thank you.
Okay, well, you also, Mr. Chair, that
you can speak to me. I don't know. You got to speak generally.
Can I get my time back? Because you cut off people when you don't want to hear what they have to say.
That
but
is
I'm
not true. That is not true. That is not true.
But didn't you say at the beginning you don't? Didn't you say at the beginning that you don't talk to public comments?
Continue.
So again, every month we come.
Point of order to the lawyer. Under the provision, Ms. Chase did not violate any of the rulings. It says you cannot address individual issues using profanity or
They may
derogatory.
not address individuals, so speak.
She
title.
didn't say any name.
I didn't say a name.
And
I
she
said
also
title.
didn't use
Go ahead.
profanity
Go
or
ahead.
derogatory terms.
Go
So I would
ahead.
just ask that you let her finish her statement, even if you disagree.
It's not about my disagreeing or not, trust me. It's not. But go ahead, continue.
Before I was rudely interrupted by the chair. We stand here and we come and we express our concerns and our opinions and different things going on in our school system. And every month it has to do with administration. Every month. We come and we say things. Last month I was here and I stated how my daughter was getting bullied by a teacher. I had a meeting here with, I believe it was the EEO lawyer. I believe that was her title. No one came to me, but when this young lady came, you sent someone over to talk to her. Shame on you again. Shame on you again. You come, and it blows my mind that you have no concern. Look at how you're even acting right now. You have no concern. We come and we pay our tax dollars, and we expect for our children to be safe. We expect for them to get an education, a great education. We do. It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. Graduation rates, all this kind of stuff going on. It hasn't happened. But what really, for me, put the nail on the coffin, someone that the CEO is supporting has called for your resignation. And she's running for public office. Shame on you. Again, you're walking papers.
Thank you again for public comment. I will remind you, if you are interested in speaking in public comment, please call the board office 2.5 hours prior to the meeting by calling 301-952-6115. And if you are registered to speak in public comment, you will absolutely be allowed to speak and say your piece. Thank you. I now move to item 4.0, the consent agenda. And I will yield the floor to Dr. Maxwell for an introduction to items 4.1 through 4.4 under the consent agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Eubanks, members of the board. Items 4.1 to 4.4 require board approval, authorizing use of the former Linden Hills Elementary School property, and proclamations commemorating School Nurse Day on May 9th, 2018, National Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, May 8, 2018, and Pupil Personnel Worker Week, May 14 to May 18, 2018.
Okay.
Madam Vice Chair, motion to approve items 4.1 to 4.4.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comment? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Dr. Maxwell?
Thank you. Items 5.1 to 5.8 require board approval of the May 2018 expenditure requirements, fiscal year 18 final review and transfer, award of contracts for services at William Schmidt, Kenmore Middle School, and Fairmont Heights High School, final acceptance and payment for projects at Central High School, Melwood Elementary School, and Charles Carroll Middle School.
So moved.
Thank you, colleagues. Moved and seconded to approve items 5.1 through 5.8 under the budget consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed. Thank you, colleagues. That motion carries. I'll now yield the floor to Dr. Maxwell for an introduction of items 7.1 through 7.11 under governance, second readers, unfinished business.
Thank you, Dr. Eubanks, members of the board. Items 7.1 to 7.11 require board approval of the adoption of various textbooks for 2018.
So moved.
It has been moved. May I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Ahmed.
Just a couple of questions on these textbook adoptions. Dr. Goldson, are these all within budget?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and then we buy new textbooks to replace old ones every how many years?
We have a rotation cycle, which I think I provided to the board.
At some point, I just don't recall.
Yeah, it ranges. Sometimes it depends on how many dollars we're allotted each year. Some of these textbooks were listed to be adopted last school year, but we didn't have enough funds, so we were able to move them over to this school year. But typically, it's about 4 to 5 years, unless, in some cases, for example, for science, we have a new gen ed curriculum, so we had to buy resources to make sure that they're updated so students are using the correct resources for the PARCC assessment.
Okay, and so some of these science textbooks may be 1 or 2 years. The old textbooks might be 1 or 2 years old.
No, not necessarily 1 or 2, but might not be on the cycle for this school year, but we had to move them up in the cycle process.
All right. And then I guess the last question and thoughts I had were around the social studies textbooks. Can we ensure that these books aren't single perspective narratives?
Yes, we can. We also can provide you the documents that we use to monitor and look for multicultural experiences, and also that meet the needs of a variety of students and backgrounds.
Okay. I think it's very important for us, being a very diverse county with diverse students, that we don't have a single perspective in our history books. So I really appreciate the effort that you have put in to ensure that we have you and your team who's here.
Yes, because the team is here, so thank you for acknowledging that.
Who have made those efforts to be sure that we have a multicultural approach to history.
Thank you, and I'll make sure we provide you that document.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Seeing no further, I will put the vote before you to approve items 7.1 through 7.11 under governance second reader. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Thank you. That motion carries. Dr. Golson, you mentioned that your textbook team is here. Can we have them stand up and be acknowledged for their hard work?
Yes, I did allow the supervisors to go home, but the chief of academics, I have given her promotion. Executive director for academics, Gladys Whitehead, Judy White, and Tony Brooks, who oversee the process.
Thank you. Move on to item 8.0, new business first reader. I'll yield the floor to Dr. Maxwell for an introduction to item 8.1 under new business first reader.
Thank you, Dr. Eubanks. Members of the board, this first reader tonight, which requires no discussion, is for the naming of the Fairmont Heights High School football stadium as the Coach Ralph C. Payton Football Stadium.
Thank you, colleagues. May I take a motion to accept item 8.1 under first reader?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and accepted to accept item 8.1 under first reader. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Thank you. That motion carries. We'll move on to item 9.0, the emergency items. I yield the floor to Dr. Maxwell for an introduction to items 9.1 and 9.2 under emergency items.
Thank you, Dr. Eubanks. Members of the board, items 9.1 and 9.2 require board approval for the non-renewal of the Turning Point Academy Public Charter School and the approval of the revised 2017-18 school calendar.
Colleagues, do we have objection for us to take the school calendar first? Because we might have a discussion under the 9.1. Is there objection to taking 9.1 first? 9.2 first. May I take a motion on 9.2 as an emergency item? It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on item 9.2? Is that you for 9.2, Ms. Ahmed?
A question: why are some days early dismissal days and others not? I looked on the calendar. June 15th is a half day or a 2-hour early dismissal, and then you have one again on the last day of school. What was the decision-making process to have that Friday as a shortened day and the Wednesday as a shortened day?
So related to the school calendar, I think the 15th was a professional day for teachers as part of our negotiated agreement with PGCEA that we have to provide a period of time for teachers to be in the classrooms without students. So that used to be a different title. So that's part of the reason why we have half days towards the end of the calendar. We'll have to have conversations with PGCEA about what the extension of the new calendar, hopefully if you approve it, what those days will look like for students.
Okay, and then another question. About a month ago, Ms. Page, who's not here at the moment, had brought up some points about, I don't know if it was directed towards administration, but there are some of us board members that had received some correspondence with her, and I want to voice some of her concerns because I think they were interesting concerns. From COMAR, it says schools have to be open for 180 days or 1,080 hours. So should we have to choose between the hour or day requirement, or is it mandated that we have to follow a specific one?
We actually have to do both, so it's 1080 plus 1080 and 180.
Okay, so we have to do 1,080 hours and 180 days.
A minimum of 1080 and 180 days.
Okay.
So we actually right now we have over a number of minutes, but we have until the board passes under the number of day requirement.
Ms. Page had outlined that out and expressed that there were a significant number of hours that we were over, but thank you for clarifying that.
Any other questions on item 9.2? Seeing none, I will put the vote before you. All in favor of approving 9.2 as an emergency item, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We'll move to item 9.1, Turning Point Academy Charter School. Mr. Burrows.
My first motion is going to be to make this a first reader and second reader, not to advance anything, but to use that process. Colleagues, this just got posted to board docs this morning. I know I need to do my due diligence. I'm sure you all need to do the same as it relates to this issue. And so I move to make this not an emergency, but to make it a first reader, second reader, so that we're not voting on this today.
Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. I would ask administration, since you brought it as an emergency item rather than a first or second reader, what are the implications and issues for this as a first and second reader rather than as an emergency item?
So I would certainly, Loretta can help speak to this as well, but when we look at the number of board meetings that we have left and the fact that we discussed this at the last meeting and the board asked us to take this under consideration and see what kinds of options we may have, we have this is the last board meeting in April. We only have one board meeting in May, which takes us to the first board meeting in June to be doing second reader. Or if we do first reader tonight, second reader May 10, we still have the issue of 2 remaining board members meetings and trying to get a RFP out for a new provider, a new charter provider, and hold parent community meetings and get all of that done in a rather curtailed time. We could use the additional weeks by moving forward tonight with this option. I think there's some information in there, and again, Loretta can speak to that as well. But again, Turning Point does not have an approved charter. That process has been underway for a while. That charter has lapsed. There is no charter in, and we are trying to make sure that we have a viable option for running the school for next year, and we think it is in our parents' and students' best interest to move with haste.
Thank you. So let me ask, I see you're up, Mr. Burrows. I'll put you on the list, and Ms. Ahmed. Would it be feasible or reasonable if this went to first reader to start those processes even prior to anything, and then if the board's actions are different in 2 weeks from now, we can just pull the RFP? Is that possible? If we started the RFP process now, scheduled the parent meetings now, and then in May 10th, if the board's decided something different, you just pull the RFP. Can we do that? So that way you won't have to have any delays related to starting the process.
I think to some degree, I think if you were a charter operator and you were putting in a contract bid and doing all of that work for an RFP, and then we said, thanks, but no thanks. You might have a different kind of perspective on that, but can we technically do it? Sure. I'm told legal doesn't see a legal objection to it. I just am not sure that sometimes contractors and other people see it that way.
All right, thank you. Ms. Ahmed. You guys both buzzed at the same time, and he had spoken, he did introduction, so.
Okay. Would you can go ahead.
She's very smart.
This is your second, so, I mean, and he's round two because he spoke already, so I go to
he's
round one.
two? Okay. So I'm not really clear on the recommendations that you're making in this action summary. Could you lay it out for me in layman's terms? What are you recommending? Administration, Loretta?
Yeah, I'll do my best to explain to you. Our
Thank you.
recommendation at this point.
Sure, that mic is on, Loretta, if it's not.
Oh, I think it sounds like it's on. Is it on? Oh, okay. So our recommendation at this point is to move from the direction of purely closing Turning Point Academy and reorganizing it under the operation and management of another operator. Okay? We will, in order to start that process, we would like to engage the staff and the parents in the selection process should we solicit through an RFP. The timing of all of this is important, and I think it's been iterated that in order to attract proven and quality operators, we want to make sure we have a solid recommendation that we are moving forward with. So in order to continue with the school next year, and that was always the recommendation that we were not closing this year, but at this point we do not have a charter agreement with the current board. The school has been operating without a contract since 2017. And we have been through several submissions and reiterations of the charter renewal application to assist, to give the governing board an opportunity to remedy some of our concerns. The first step was to deal with the reorganization of the board, which they recently did in the last few months. But we have been asking them to do that over the past term, which was their most recent renewal. So we are happy to see that the board members are now coming forth, but they were pretty much absent from some of the site visits and the benchmark assessments that we've done of this school. But at this point, the recommendation is to continue the school through next year, continue to populate it as it was programmed to do anyway, but in the meantime, we need to move expeditiously in locating an operator, a proven operator that can assist with helping the school to continue to thrive.
Okay.
Ms. Ahmed, I would only add, to that we have had some charter operators who have been reaching out to us about this question and are interested in having a conversation about keeping Turning Point intact under alternate leadership. So I think that, again, the sooner we can get the process started, the sooner we can have a viable option for another operator doing it. You remember when we spoke about this last time, we had said we would step in and keep it open for the year. What we're, in response to what we heard from this board at the last meeting, we're saying we're willing to actively and quickly make sure that we can find an operator, but the longer we wait to do that and to get that process finalized, the more difficult it will be.
Thank you. I guess my concern is when I hear charter operator change or a change in the governing board, what remains to have this still be TPA?
The school in itself, TPA would still operate as a public school under the pure oversight and sole oversight of the school district. That's the thing to keep in mind. That's what will happen.
But I think it's important, just again, to remember
You know, what we heard from parents was, we want our community to stay intact. And we're looking for an option to keep that intact. When you say what will remain of TPA, the board will not. I think what we want to do is have our folks come out and sit with parents and talk about what are you looking for, what is important to you, and then try to engage with charter operators to say, tell us this is what parents are saying, what would you provide, what will that be?
And it's important to remember now that we don't have an agreement with the prior governing board because that charter has expired. But our intent is to keep that staff and those students together until we can find, and they can help us, the staff and parents of the school can help us find an operator that can oversee the school.
Okay, and then just to clarify one confusing point in this resolution, or maybe it's not confusing, maybe it's just straightforward, that therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of Prince George's County hereby approves, if this were to pass, hereby approves the recommendation of the CEO not to approve the renewal application of Turning Point Academy Public Charter School. That what that means, if I'm hearing this correctly, is that the leadership, the charter operator for the school, the recommendation is not to renew or follow through with them.
The charter school operator as we know it today, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I have Contreras, Grady, Williams, Boston, Wiseman, and Murray. I just want to, can I, without objection, one point of clarification based on your question that I misunderstood. I didn't read anything here that says the school is going to run it at any point. Isn't your proposal that there be a charter school operator identified for the 18-19 school year?
That's
so
out.
I thought I heard you say that the school would operate it for some period of time.
No, until we do identify an operator, they will be under the district's oversight.
All right. But this says you're going to identify an operator in the 18-19 school year, so you don't intend for the district to operate the okay. School at all, right?
Yes, if we are provided the time to move forward on this.
I'm just making sure.
That's the issue with the time, Dr.
It's
Eubanks.
the time.
Is that
Thank you. Ms. Contreras, Grady.
So I wanted to make a friendly amendment to Mr. Burrows. If this could be the first reader, and then May 10th would be the second reader, and that gives an opportunity to sort of get feedback or engage the parents. But also, I personally didn't have a chance to also review the information that was put up. So I wanted to really have the time to do that, to be honest.
I accept.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yes.
I thought that was your motion in the first place.
Yeah.
So your motion then is today's first reader, and then next week is second reader. Okay. Thank you. That's what I thought the motion was. Do you want anything else, Ms. Contreras, Grady?
No, that was, I wanted to see
Thank
that.
you. All right. Thank you. Ms. Williams.
I just have a quick question. There was a mention of a charter review board. Who is that made up of?
The Charter Review Board are the internal area office staff members and an external consultant that reviewed the renewal application. The annual performance review and site visits are also conducted by our internal content supervisors, school leaders, and content specialists, as well as external consultants that work with us. So there is a balance of inside view versus the outside view, and those external consultants are people that have worked in the charter world with program evaluations, reading and approval of charter school applications. They have a wealth of experience in evaluating charter schools and making recommendations based on renewals or not.
And also, can you just give me a quick timeline of this again? Because I've heard it a couple times, but I've never written it down. Okay. At one point in time, there was a charter that was in place, and it was time for renewal.
Yes.
Can you start at that point?
Okay. The charter expired June 30th, 2017. The original application was required to be submitted November 2016. That was the first renewal application that was submitted. And it was reviewed, and we found some gaps in information, and we debriefed with the governing board to inform them of our concerns about the responses to the template for the renewal, and offered them the opportunity to correct the indicators that were not clear to us. The governing board opted to resubmit a full application, and we accepted it. We accepted that offer. They asked for a time. We provided them a timeline of January to submit that renewal application. They then came and asked for an extension to February, and then again asked for another extension until April. We denied the second request for an extension for April, and they had to submit their application in, and we revisited the application again. So this has been going on now about 15 months.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Boston.
How you doing?
Hey.
I have a couple of questions. Is the current provider or management team, are they eligible to reapply?
Sure. I don't see, when we put out the RFP, I'm not aware of any restrictions. And see, that's one of the things, when we do the RFP, we would have to prescribe the scope of services and the background that the provider should come to the table with as an applicant.
Thank you. I want to follow up on the last question that Ms. Ahmed asked you on explanation of this last paragraph beginning with "therefore be it resolved," because your explanation and the way this is written, to me, something's missing. So can you explain that to me again?
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it, and if it's too much legalese, I apologize for that. Well, basically, what we have here is that there is no charter agreement, okay? So this isn't a situation where we're asking you all to revoke a charter agreement. Their charter agreement is done, it's over, it expired. What they did is they submitted a renewal application. And so what we're recommending is a no. Don't renew it. That's simply what it says, is don't renew this application. Don't renew this charter agreement. That's the recommendation.
Right, but when, your name, I forgot your name.
Loretta.
Loretta.
Mm-hmm.
But when you explained it, or you explained it to Ms. Ahmed, or tried to explain it to us, you stated that it's not the charter that the charter with school will still stay intact, but this doesn't read that way.
Yeah,
although it may be the
I can
legal
see
way,
where
but-
there might be a gap in some information.
Because I
there.
don't want to vote on something and it come back and say, well, this is the way it.
Ms.
it
Boston, when we have charter schools, typically there's a 501c3 corporation and members of a governing board who will come in and apply to open up a charter school or to operate a charter school. What we're saying is that we want this school to continue as either a charter or a contract school. We just don't want the existing 501c3 organization to continue to operate it. And so what we're recommending is that we issue an RFP to look for a new charter school operator.
I understand that.
Okay.
So you've done enough of these whereases and therefore to understand. But
Yes,
what I need
ma'am.
for you to do
Okay.
is to put that then
To
in
correct
here
that.
to make it clear. Because I don't want this to come back next year, next month, and it says, well, this is you voted for this language the way it is. So I want you to state that we're not closing the charter school, that we're pretty much redoing the
So
manual.
if we
if
can just real quick on the length, so because we're on first reader, we have the ability to amend the language to clarify the areas that there are concerns, and when we come on second reader, you'll be voting on.
That's what I'm
the
asking. When
final
she
rank.
comes back,
Yes,
they
we
bring
can
that
do that. That's not a
language back.
problem. That's not a problem.
So to be
Because
clear,
I
Ms.
do
Boston,
plan- I'm
can
not finished.
I'm just going to try to make
Okay.
it so that we have clarity about exactly what
Okay.
you're
Did I
asking.
say that?
There are 4 recommendations that are that are on page 1 of the board action summary.
Correct.
We want those recommendations to be in the body of the resolution.
We can We hear a lot. We work with Ms. Tate and the board office on the minutes. We can clear up the language so it's clearer as to what we're stating. Normally, when we do a board action summary around renewal, we don't delineate the different steps we're going to take. In this case, we were trying to delineate the different steps we're going to take in order to fulfill what we heard with the speakers from Ms. Lupi and others. So that's on us on trying to delineate. We'll put it in the body, into the whereases, and when you vote on, hopefully, at May 10th meeting, it'll be clear for everyone involved.
Okay. I just, like I said before, I want more clarity before we vote on this. And I'm leaning to vote for a first reader on this because I do think there's some things that we need to get clear before we actually take a vote on this. And I want to call for the question.
Thank you. The question's been called by policy. That means the people still on the list, Wiseman, Murray, and Burrows, may speak, and after that, we'll bring it up to a vote. Dr. Wiseman.
I have a very quick question. You used the language you were going to continue to populate. Can you tell me about what that means in relationship to the lottery? And were you referring to students?
Yes.
And that you would continue in the normal way that charters get their students?
Absolutely. The lottery closed in January, but we froze the population of the kindergarten grades and any new students. So with this, when the board asked us to come back with options, we rescinded the freezing of the population from the current lottery, allowing all those that were interested to continue to come into the school if they're so desired.
So including kindergarten? Because
Including
I know that
the
was a
kindergarten.
discussion at the
Right,
last.
and any new
when we
students.
talked
So they
about
will
this.
be able to fill any vacant seats.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comments are around, first of all, I think that I understand the expediency issue and we're looking forward to next year and what we want to do with the school. I do want to make sure that we're giving every consideration and opportunity to the current charter operator that's there. We have teachers that are going to go to school tomorrow and teach these students, and yet we're talking like this is a foregone conclusion that they're not going to stay. The board hasn't taken not even one vote indicating that. And so I'm not sure why we feel the need to rush down this path. I understand that you all have been working with them for a long time. The board has not received much of this information. A lot of what I've heard a lot about applications. I've heard a lot about adult disagreements. I haven't heard anything about students. And so I'm more interested in student data and student outcomes. Can you explain why, based on student data, does Turning Point Academy not deserve renewal?
That's a heavy question. And the best way I can say this, Board Member Murray, is this. When a charter school, when an operator submits an application to us, that application is approved based on their promise to provide unique and innovative learning experiences that will exceed, where the students will meet mastery that will exceed or meet the district. So in the case of Turning Point, I'm not saying that it's a really failing school, but in terms of the performance, it has been up and down. It has been up and down. And the headliner here, again, I say the students, and you've heard the staff member, I couldn't say it any more passionately than Mr. C.A., who said that these youngsters have been there, a lot of them have been there a long time, and I do empathize with that. But when we contract with a vendor, and in this case, Turning Point Foundation is the vendor that submitted an application that promised that they would meet or exceed, it is their responsibility to fulfill that obligation. And when they don't, then it is deemed as failing to meet the terms of the charter agreement. And that is just one area. And academics alone is not it. And that's why we've been very clear that academics is a concern, but it's not the headliner here.
Okay, thank you for that background. So just a yes or no question, is Turning Point meeting or exceeding district averages?
Not across the board in every area, no.
So in some or many ways they are?
In some ways they are.
Okay, so we have many unfortunately many schools across the district that are below district averages.
But-
and we're not talking about closing down neighborhood schools, but yet we're coming
But the
after a
the
charter
differ-
school that's providing free busing and doing great work for our students.
The difference is that we are, as a charter school, you know that they are on a contract, and the contract is not a lifetime membership. And each time that term expires, and we have gone through the school and visited that school, and we have provided the governing board some of our concerns. And they have had time over the past 3 years to address those concerns. We are seeing the board members now, and I'm happy, and I would be disappointed if they weren't here now to say they have a right, they need to be here to try to save the school. The staff has done a marvelous job in some of the most challenging situations. They really have. And one thing about it, through that school staff and the leadership, that the student enrollment has never been an issue. But they have a charter agreement that they did not fulfill on their own promise.
So the first thing I'll say is that I don't think that they would attract the great teachers and school culture and results that they're getting by accident. It doesn't just happen by accident. So clearly the governing board has set forth some kind of precedent that has drawn hardworking teachers and students into their school building.
And I don't argue that, but I give high accolades to that staff and that leadership in the building.
I mean, speaking honestly about governance boards, I have concerns about the governance of Prince George's County Public Schools generally. And I have much more compelling arguments, I promise you, about the concerns with Prince George's County Public Schools and with Turning Point Academy. But that being said, going forward, it would be helpful to me, perhaps to other board members, to get some academic data around how students are performing, because as you said, if they're performing in line or better, I believe they're educating slightly higher rates of impoverished students than other schools in the county and are still performing on average. And we need to see that data, because a document just saying issues around the governing board, I mean, we're a school board here looking after students, and so I'm less interested in politics and I'm more interested in results and outcomes for our kids.
Okay. The response to the application, the renewal report was lifted up in board docs. When was it? At our last board meeting. But I'll make sure that that's refreshed for you.
Okay.
Along with the data, and I will provide you with the data on how they are performing across the grade in a 3-year trend, which is already in that renewal report.
Great, thank you. And just another reason that I think we should slow this process down and make sure that we're exercising every bit of due diligence we can on behalf of the staff and students at Turning Point. Thank you.
Respectfully. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mr. Burrows.
Thank you, Board Member Murray. I actually have their data in front of me. I pulled it up. And actually, let me start here. How many students, farm students that are at or below the poverty line are in Turning Point Academy?
Roughly around 70%, 68, 69%.
So about 70%.
Yes.
What is the average farm rate for charter schools in the school district?
They vary between, I was just looking at something today, between 39 and up to 60-something.
Yeah. Most of our charter schools generally have low farm data students, because poor families can't afford to personally transport their kid to the charter school. You're familiar with that?
I am very much so.
And so wouldn't you recognize that that has an impact on data, like poverty and educational outcomes have some sort of correlation?
I would say access does have a correlation.
And so when I look at this data and I look at their math scores, and I look at them outpacing the county on their PSAT mean composite, this charter school has been able to outperform like schools in the school district by a lot. If you look at schools with the same demographics of students, 70% at or below the poverty line, this school is actually succeeding academically. And so the whereas clause that says the governing board of Turning Point has not demonstrated the capacity to effectively address the school improvement needs in the area of student achievement, that would not hold true.
Mr. Burrows, I do ask you to not look at a singular assessment, which is the PSAT 8. I asked you to look at the full trend data of Park from 2015 to 2018, and just look at each one of those grades, and if you, it might even help to look at them diagonally.
That's the
Third
data
grade,
you're going to
fourth
give us,
grade.
right? That's the data you're
Yes,
going to give us?
absolutely.
I actually have before me the Park scores, and they are English. They are they're actually exceeding the state with English 8. They're right on par, English 7. They're outseeding the county, English 6. They're pretty competitive everywhere else. And so I have the data in front of me, and so I reject that whereas clause. When I look at the, it's in here that the governing board has failed to execute its duties, responsibilities, and ethical standards, including conflicts of interest with family members. Sir, can someone from the governing board, I just have a question about that. No, I did this with College Park Academy.
Okay, I just wanted, we'll have another opportunity for this.
Yeah, right after this vote, I know. Are there still family members on this board?
No.
And when was that corrected?
Long time ago last year, as soon as we got the notice that we should remove board members that were related, we did it immediately.
Okay.
You have a boom, sir. Wait a minute, sir. Sir, you have a booming voice, but we need to get you on the mic because this is recorded. If you're gonna come up.
We did so 8 months ago.
When did you receive the notice and when did you do it?
8 months ago.
Okay, so you did it.
We did it as soon as we got the letter.
And I need some evidence of that from you.
Absolutely, I can turn it in.
I need to be able to verify. I have no proof of any of this on either side, and so I would like to verify that there are no family members on the board still.
Mr. Burrows?
Yes.
May I
Yes.
interject just a comment here?
Yes, please.
I will also share with you the past site visits that we have done every year since their last renewal,
Okay.
which also speaks to the concerns regarding family members on the board.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
So that wouldn't
no.
have been
It's not going to be a debate. I got it. Also, the neglect to address current facility challenges and barriers. I visited the school. It's awkwardly shaped. Did I think kids cannot learn in that space? No, because clearly they are, right? The scores are pretty great. And so the building itself, I didn't see mold like I see in some of our other schools. I didn't see other challenges that I'm not sure that's a reason. I mean, is there a reason to believe that students are not safe in this building? I guess is my question.
If you would see,
Right into the microphone, please.
if you could see those kindergartners cramped into the space, if you would just talk to some of the staff members that are very much concerned about the facility and its access so that they can thrive in their mission. Just speak to that, yeah. So there are some concerns about that facility.
Okay, I went to the school, and maybe I didn't see a kindergarten class, but I will return to do that. Yeah. And I guess I would like to know the changes in structure. Have they been renewed time and time again? I want to know what I would like to see their past applications, because if they had the capacity at one point in time, I'm trying to figure out, did they lose it? Why did they lose it?
That's a good question.
Are we able to? I'm just trying to understand that. So I would like to be able to read past applications as well.
Not a problem. I'll provide those to you.
Thank
And one of the things, we've been in this business now 11 years, 11 or 12 years. And Turning Point is one of our oldest schools.
Right.
Oldest, one of the first charter schools. And as we get better as authorizers,
right,
it's important that we understand our responsibility to hold our vendors accountable for what they promise to do. So
That makes.
Excuse me, I really appreciate folks' enthusiasm here, but please no outbursts from the audience. Thank you very much.
I understand that, and I'm happy that you have a high standard, and I know you do a great job. I want to make sure that we are treating this school with the same courtesy that we treat other charter schools. We've been over backwards for College Park Academy, and we came back for vote after vote after vote to allow them to create a geographical preference area for some students so that not all students could have equal access to the school. And so we've done a lot of things around charters that I'm not too comfortable with when it comes to equity. And so when I see a charter school that's outpacing the state in some cases, that's outpacing the county in some cases, with a 70% free and reduced population, I think we need to work together to make it work. And that's what I would like to see.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. The question has been called. I will put the question before you. The motion is that we approve this as a first reader with a second reader at the May 10th board meeting.
No, that wasn't my motion. My motion was to make this a first reader today.
Right.
So this is to revert it from an emergency to first reader. Yeah, for
Right.
today.
Right, for today. And so by approving this motion, it'll be approved as first reader.
What? No, my motion is just to make it a first reader for today. After this vote, to vote on it today as a first reader, then we can vote. I mean,
Okay. Well, his requires 2 votes, mine requires 1 vote, but fine.
Right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Thank you, that motion carries. We will now introduce this as a first reader. May I have a motion to approve this as first reader? Is someone going to approve it as first reader?
So moved.
May someone will second it? Is now, it's been moved and seconded as first reader. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. Thank you, that motion carries.
I buzzed in, and I didn't even vote. I buzzed in also.
So we have to get it from here, okay? The motion carried. First reader doesn't even require debate. In
Right,
fact,
but that doesn't,
although
that doesn't give you the right not to recognize me. I buzzed in. You didn't even look down at the buzzer. I have a right, and also you didn't even record my vote. You know, I mean, I have not buzzed in.
I said all those in favor, please say aye.
No, you said, is there a motion? Second, all those in favor, aye. You didn't even look down to see that I had buzzed in.
Well, because now that we've debated this for first read, I thought we were all in actually unanimous agreement that we want to continue this and have a robust discussion, which I think there's a lot of people who are very compelled by these arguments who want to kind of move on a debate about this thoroughly at the next meeting. So
I was spending majority of my
confused.
time debating the merits of it not being an emergency. Now I like to debate.
Oh, no, you spent a majority of time debating the actual substance. We did not, we actually, my lawyer, the lawyer for the board sent a note and saying, we are not debating the substance of this. I'm going to ask folks, please, to let us conduct this meeting, and we appreciate your enthusiasm. We really do.
All I can say is that I buzzed in. I have the right as a member of this board to buzz in, to comment on motions, and I did that.
All right, so the motion has passed. Do you want to make a comment now?
Wow. I think it's absolutely inappropriate for you to not recognize board members for buzzing in. I buzzed in prior to you calling the roll. You did not look down. You rolled right through it. And then you call the vote as an elected member.
So tell me, let me just be clear so that we're not debating over unnecessary things. What did you want to amend your own first reader motion?
No, my first reader motion was to, I've been very clear about this. My first reader motion was to not have it as an emergency, to have us vote on it as a first reader today.
Right.
Okay, that passed. So now that we are voting on whether or not to be a first reader or not, I wanted to debate the merits of it. I mean, I don't know what's funny, Miss Williams. We're talking about shutting down a successful charter school.
No, we're not shutting, we're not
You know
talking
what?
about.
Actually, we got more in common than we don't, and you're going through a procedural thing. You know, I found, just for the record, I found your comments to be extremely compelling, and I'm very much looking forward to a really robust debate that's going to be very open to this. And so I'm not trying to, other than the fact to say we got this first read, let's put on the record and let's debate it. I'm ready. I'm ready to really take this in a whole different direction, because I found your arguments, all of them, to be rather compelling. So I'm not, this is not, the idea is let's put it on the record for first reader and let's deal with it next week and come up with a real resolution. That's the way it should work.
Well, if you're willing to take this in a whole different direction, I will take away my buzzer. But I did buzz it, and in the future, we can't do this again.
All right.
You know.
I assumed you wanted it on first reader and that we weren't going to debate anymore because we had debated for a half hour. I shouldn't have made that assumption.
Okay. And I like to be recorded as a no.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No. My motion is already passed.
Yeah.
This is
a no
a
to the
different
first
motion.
reader. A no to it on first
Yes,
reader.
I don't want to advance this because I don't think we should be discussing this at all in this current form.
Okay.
So I'm a no.
All right.
I'm a no as well.
Thank you.
Well, I would have said no, but as we said, Dr. Eubanks rolled through
Thank
it in
you.
the interest of passing it.
Thank you. But we will, please come back next week because this will be on the agenda as second reader next week, and we will have a full and robust discussion about it. All right.
Is it next week?
The next board meeting.
Next board meeting.
The next board meeting, May 10th. Is that the next board meeting? May 10th? Whenever the next board meeting. Okay. All right, my friends, item 10.0 is follow-up items, and follow-up items for the April 12th, 2018 board meeting will be posted in board docs upon receipt. Colleagues, may I have a motion to approve actions taken in executive session on Tuesday, April 24th, 2018? It's been moved and seconded to approve items taken in executive session on April 24th, 2018 as follows: labor negotiations, internal audits, and personnel appointments. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say no. Thank you. That motion carries. Colleagues, may I have a motion to adjourn? May I have a second? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? All right. We are adjourned.
better days, but thank you for your words. They were powerful.
The fact that they would bring that up as an emergency, I can't tell you how little the board has